Well, everybody, hey, we're back, and thank you for joining us again. And boy, do we have, what is this, Brian? Your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh? We have got
17th,
Brian
John, I think
Sexton
is what
back
it
on.
is. 17th, I think is what it is. How you
No,
boy?
not today. How many times you been on the podcast?
That's what I'm saying. But I'm not being with Todd. That's the thing. I'm right. I'm not being with Todd.
Yep.
So, man, what an honor to be with Todd. I hope I sound okay. I in these headphones.
No, you're good, brother. You're
I
loud
look
and
like
clear.
I'm from outer space. I put these headphones on. I should have put something a little cleaner on.
Nah, you're good.
I started to put my in-ears on, but I thought, well, I'll use these. And I've got a temporary little setup here. So full disclosure. So man, boys, it's probably been almost 2 weeks ago. So I'm trying to think my days are running together.
Yeah.
As we record this. So on Sunday, we're recording this on the 17th. So let me go back to 10th. So it was like the 5th or 6th, boys. We got, and it may not have been that long. So it might have been, it was the 6th. So it was on Sunday the 6th.
Okay.
Or Sunday the 5th, I should say. Boys, we got scissor kicked up here with some snow.
Yes, y'all did.
We got scissor kicked. It's if you don't know what a scissor kick is, it's just like, it's like this. You get smacked on both sides of the head.
That's right.
So we had church that afternoon and we dismissed early because we were going to get the snow about 12:30 or 1 o'clock up here. So we cut Sunday service a little bit early, and we got out, and so my wife and I had a couple of errands to run. We were going to get them done and get to the house. We got to Lowe's to pick up a couple things, and here came the snow flying. And so it took us about a half hour to get home. We had to go in a back way because the main thoroughfare, somebody had already gone off the side of the hill.
Good.
And by the time that evening hit, about 8 or 9 o'clock that night, we probably had 6 or 8 inches of snow. And then overnight, we got about a half inch of ice on top of that. So everything that next day was Monday, everything was shut down. And so I have a little studio that's a little bit of a walk. Well, we've had so much snow on the ground, I just didn't want to trump the snow in. And so we've got so my wife has a desk here in the bedroom where we're working. So she's like, well, just use my desk. So we have a temporary little setup here. And so thank the Lord for microphones and mic stands that you can
adjust.
Use it. I've recorded in hotels. Couple of times I've been on with John. I've been in a hotel room. So,
well, I was actually the last time y'all recorded, I was on the road and couldn't join in. Yeah, you were in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's right, Todd.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, Todd.
So Brian, real quick, now, since you've opened it up, so in your book, this is one of the reasons why we brought him on. Not the only reason, but I think it's backwards because I don't have.
No, it looks good. I can see it. It looks like front side of it.
This is Brian's latest book, and I'm going to tell everybody, see here, y'all can be jealous. If you're listening, I'm holding up Brian's new book, and I'm showing everybody where he signed it. And thank you so much, Brian. And he sent me these, and he actually sent me one I've already got, and he signed it too, so that's awesome. But this is Brian's new book, Intentional Encouragement. And Brian, before we get, one of the things I read in your new book, I want you to tell us how to go about getting it, and I definitely want to talk about it, because I called Todd, and I said, Todd, I want to give you a heads up what this is all about, so I kind of give Todd an overview. But in your book, you talk about your little podcast room that you have.
Yeah.
Do you care to just tell everybody kind of how all that came about and what that means to you?
Yeah. John, it's
I did
funny.
read your book, bro.
I appreciate that. No, the podcast room. So during COVID, I had toyed with doing podcasts of some kind because I had done radio for, over 20 years. I had done fill-in work for the radio station. In fact, I have an outbuilding that used to be the bedroom of the single wide trailer my wife and I rented from her grandparents when we first got married almost 29 years ago. So when we put our house on this property now, we were able to take that, put it to the back of the property and run internet to it and things like that. So my wife said, well, you need a little podcasting space. And so when she redid my office, one side of it, it's got a green wall. I painted a green wall, so you put a virtual background on it. And that's the studio, if you will. So we did a lot of podcasts out of there, man. The first time Al Robertson was on, the setup was different. Man, I was just trying to figure my way out, and the internet was pretty terrible. And
Been there.
Poor Al, man. He was a trooper, man. He's a good friend, and we got through it. But it's gotten better, and the technology's gotten better. You know, we're podcasting now. That I was telling you guys before we start recording, I'm relaunching a podcast. It's something my pastor wants to do, and we recorded our first episode in 2 years today, or my first episode recording one in about 2 years that I wasn't on somebody else's podcast. We had fun doing that. We did that at the church. So
excellent.
In fact, the banner that we got for the Forgiveness and Encouragement Conference that we did with Al and Lisa is what we recorded behind today. So yeah, the podcast studio, it's pretty sentimental. I've had a lot of great conversations in that corner of the room, and who knows, John, we may do more of those. We may have more of those great conversations coming out of there. So who knows what the Lord will allow us to do.
So I don't know if I've ever told anybody. I'm sorry, Todd. Did you have something? I walked all over you.
No, you're good. The only thing I was going to say is, with Al growing up out there on that river where he grew up, he understands about hardships with technology.
So can I tell you guys a quick story?
Ahead,
absolutely.
Can I tell you a quick story? Todd, it's funny you mention that. So I was down there working September of 23. Okay. So I was down in West Monroe working, and I knew I was going to be down there, and I texted Al and I said, hey, you going to be home? And he goes, yeah, we're home. Yeah, we're in town. And I said, well, let's get together and get some dinner. And he said, okay. He said, so I'm in my hotel room, man. I flew into Shreveport the night before on Sunday night. And so I got to bed about 1 or 1:30 in the morning Central Time. So 2:30 here. So we're an hour ahead.
Yep.
And Todd, Al texted me about 4 o'clock. I was trying to get a little nap. He said, come to the house about 6. We'll just eat here. I said, even better. Let's do that.
Yes.
Even better. And so we're sitting there talking, and he goes, man, he said, I should have told you. He said, should come in the morning and watch a podcast. He said, can you do that? And I said, yeah, I'll move a couple things around. I ended up having to be in Alexandria that night, so I was able to be flexible enough to move a couple things around. And so he said, hey, meet me at Duck Commander. We'll go down. I said, okay. But he asked me, he said, you like chicken biscuits from Chick-fil-A? And I looked at him, and I'm sitting in his living room. I said, you know where I live, right? I said, man, I live in the fattest state in America. Of course I like chicken biscuits from Chick-fil-A. In fact, in Barbersville, West Virginia, Todd, and John will know what I'm talking about here. Okay.
I know what's coming.
Todd, in Barbersville, West Virginia, we've got 2 Chick-fil-A's. We've got 2 of them.
Really? I didn't know that.
We've got one on the hill that's just down from Walmart. And we've got one in the mall that we've had since the mall's been there since 1981. So 44 years. We've had a Chick-fil-A inside the mall. Okay. So these people here, I mean, again, fattest state in America, not PHAT like kids say, FAT like fat,
big,
like obese.
Big, yes.
Big. These 2 Chick-fil-A's are busy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't get into one up the hill, if the cars are lying down the hill, getting a drive-through,
yeah,
you run to the mall. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sharing it. I told Al, I said, man, you know where I live. I live in West Virginia. Yes, we like chicken biscuits. So the next morning, meet him at Duck Commander, and we're hightailing it out this country road. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this looks like home. And so we pull up to this big gate, and Al's either punching in a code or talking to this box. I'm behind him. This big gate opens up. I'm like, all right. Do you remember the 60s TV show Batman? You remember 60s TV Batman, how the Bat Cave opened up? This looked like we were about to roll through the Bat Cave. And it was, man. It looked like we were going to roll through the Bat Cave. So we wind around, we pull up in front of this double wide.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this double wide on TV before. We pull up to Phil and Miss Kay's house. And so I go, oh, man, I recognize this. I said, Al, you want me to sit in the car? He said, no, Mom knows you. Come on in. So the double wide, I can verify that the double wide that you've seen on Duck Dynasty, Phil and Kay's house, that's real.
That is real.
That is real. Okay. So we go out where they're filming the Unashamed podcast, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there eating chicken biscuit with Phil, and Jace comes in. We're making small talk. We're just chatting small talk. And boys, this is on Tuesday morning.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna take this story in a little different direction. So we watched a podcast. Man, it was great. Met Dan the eunuch for the first time. Dan and I had been texting with each other, but I'd known Dan. I had never met him, and so finally got to meet the eunuch and Dan Stevenson, who works for Phil and Kay.
That's right.
And so, Todd, we're about to take off, and they're going to do round 2 of another podcast. And I said, boys, can I pray for you before I get out of here? And Phil, in typical Phil fashion, he said, well, get after it. I said, all right. So we prayed with them, had good word of prayer, and I got on the road and hugged Al, and we took a couple pictures, and then I took off out of there. That was on Tuesday morning. So John, I fly back to Charleston, fly from Shreveport back to Charleston on Thursday, get home Thursday night. So Friday, the movie premiered, The Blind premiered on Thursday night. I wasn't able to see it, so I had to wait till the next day. So we went to the theater here in Barbersville and saw it. Okay. So right there at the end, everybody sees Phil, and Phil's giving his testimony. And I nudge my wife and I go, this is wild. This is wild. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, Tuesday morning, I was eating a chicken biscuit with Phil Robertson.
Just having a conversation.
And now I'm sitting here in Barbersville, West Virginia.
And prayed over it.
Yeah, and had prayer with him. And here I am seeing him on big screen. And the movie theaters, there's a ton of people there. Okay, especially in our area, they love Duck Dynasty. And I'm sitting there going, if y'all knew who I had been with Tuesday, every one of you'd be making a beeline to come talk to me.
Yep.
But that's just it.
You're absolutely right.
We've talked about this many times. Right. Me and John and others that's been on the podcast, we talk about this. But that goes to the legacy, and they have really started hitting in on that
yeah. Well, and especially now that Zach's a part of their podcast, Zach's mother Jan had a huge influence on them. You've had Gordon on. You guys have had Gordon on.
Yes.
I've not gotten the privilege of meeting Gordon. Would love to do that.
Tremendous man.
Yeah, Gordon has really been a big contributor to Al and Lisa's blog. But it's funny. We were talking today, guys. My pastor and I were talking today. One of the guys in my church told me the other day, he sent me a text, and he said, I've really had Al and Lisa on my heart.
Yes.
Next time you talk to them, just let them know we're praying for them. They made such an impact on our little church in Huntington. There wasn't but about 80 people at our conference. I tell you, there should have been 800 people there. There really should have. Don't know where we'd put them, but there should have been 800 people there. Al and Lisa were that good, and the message that they shared was that powerful, boys. It really was.
Absolutely.
We know what that gate looks like. Burley took us through that gate. That's where we, you're right. It's just like, and here's the crazy thing about Phil, and I don't know that anybody's been down there. I mean, we wouldn't know, but
sure,
there's a good possibility that when Todd and Burley baptized me and Brian Robertson last October, very well could be the last baptisms that took place on that boat ramp.
Jon, I've got one. I showed Al this picture a couple years. This was so. My family and I were on the first Duck Commander cruise in 2014. Okay. And if I find that picture, Jon, and we'll send it to you, I've got a picture of Phil baptizing this young girl in a swimming pool
on the boat. And
it's cool. It's one of the coolest pictures I've taken. And I showed Al, and he goes, I got to have that picture. And I said, of course. I'm going to send it to you. It was just powerful. That was the first time I met Al and Lisa in person, was on that cruise. And, it was a pretty powerful picture of him baptizing somebody. Of course, here's the thing you got to remember too, guys. That was during the height of the popularity of Duck Dynasty.
Right, right.
And I think there were just people there that just wanted to be baptized by Phil or Jace or one of them, just to say they had just, and of course, again, I saw so many people just star chasing on that cruise.
Yes.
Because I'm here to tell you, they were on one floor, and people found out where they were staying, and they had to post extra security just because people were just getting stupid.
Well, that's entirely why that gate's in place.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right, Todd.
To me, that's the saddest part of that whole situation is the steps that had to be put in place just to ensure security. And I've seen it firsthand with the security that follows any one of them around.
Yep.
But for the cause of Christ.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And again, we need to keep Phil in prayer.
Absolutely. Yes.
Listen, I believe this. I truly, and I've not shared this with Al. I'm sharing this just with you guys, just what I feel impressed to share. I believe the Lord's going to do something
tremendous,
miraculous through that, however it goes for Phil. We definitely want to keep praying for Phil.
And Miss
keep
Kate.
Al and Lisa in your prayers.
Yes.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. You will not find sweeter people than Al and Lisa Robertson. They have become dear friends. We love them. We love them dearly. Like I said, they were up here in West Virginia. So funny. The night they spoke at Kentucky Christian in Grayson, Kentucky, which is about 45 minutes from here, Todd, it was their 40th anniversary. And I got to tell this story. Jon, I don't think I've even told Jon this story. So this is going to be new stuff.
2 new stories.
Okay? Yeah. So I had worked it out the night before. So that hat that Jon's got on, okay, I had no idea. So I told Al 2 or 3 weeks before they were coming up here, I said, send me some books so we can sell them. People are going to want to buy books and things like that. Well, that hat Jon's got on, I didn't know we were getting that hat, Jon. And so that's why I didn't tell you. I didn't know that they were sending hats. And so when I was putting the hats out that morning of the conference, I was counting hats because I'm a hat guy.
Okay? Me too.
And so Jon so graciously sent Al and I these Let's Talk Fortitude hats, Todd. And so we had a little gift basket that we put in Al and Lisa's room. So they got in on Thursday night and drove over here. They flew into Lexington and drove over here. And Jon, you've been up and down 64 from Canova through there. I told Al and Lisa, I sent them a text. I said, watch yourself when you cross into West Virginia. Because right there it's become a speed trap there at Canova. It's crazy. It's just become a little speed trap. And so I put them Let's Talk Fortitude hat. I put the Let's Talk Fortitude hat in that gift basket. And we had them some snacks and cheese and stuff like that. And so Friday morning, John, when I saw those hats, I was counting the hats. Because I knew I was getting you out one. I knew I was getting me out one. I was like, well, there ain't going to be too many hats for people left. But that next night, my wife Tanya and I helped them set up a table at Kentucky Christian. And I tell you what, man, Al did such a great job that night at Kentucky Christian. But they found out it was their anniversary and they got them cake. So we're sitting in the back. Al and Lisa's up front. They separated us a little bit. And so Lisa's texting me. She goes, they brought us cake. Y'all want a piece of cake? I'm like, well, yeah. Is Pope Catholic? Sure, we want a piece of cake. You know? And so it was so funny. We were sitting at this back table and almost in the back of the room, John, just in the far back. We're sitting with this couple and they go, well, how are you? And I said, yeah, we're here to see our friends speak, things like that. And I'm sure they're thinking, yeah, right. They're friends with Al and Lisa. Yeah, right. You know? All of a sudden, about 5 minutes later, here comes Lisa coming back to get it. No, I had to go up and get the piece of cake from up there. And then about 5-10 minutes later, here comes Al to the back of the room, try to find us. And I was like, well, hey, these people that we're here at this table with here, won't you guys meet Al Robertson?
They're
and I was like,
he does know.
I was going to say, John, told you we were here.
Told you.
But it was so good, man. It was the whole conference was so good. And, it was just, they shared with our folk just the things that they had gone through. Lisa talked about her abortion.
Yep.
My goodness, she talked about how it affected her. Al talked about how he had wandered from the Lord. Talked about getting almost beat to death in New Orleans as a young man. Listen, I can't wait for y'all to have them on the podcast because I'm telling you, they just keep it real. They're so down to earth.
Absolutely.
And Al is the perfect, and I told him this even this last time we were together. I said, dude, you're the perfect quarterback for that podcast. You know how to get everybody involved.
Right.
And so if people that are watching Let's Talk Fortitude, if you like the Unashamed podcast, to me, maybe I'm biased, but I think the reason it's so good is because Al is involved distributing the ball, so
Brian,
to speak.
you told me the first time that you were on the podcast, because we were talking about that. And
I haven't been on the Unashamed podcast. Now, I want to be.
The first time you were on this podcast. And
I really want to be on that podcast too, John. I want to be on this one, but I want to be on that one too.
Yeah. So we got a little bit of a story we might get into about, we almost got to record in there. Almost. We were close, but anyway. So, but you said the statement you made about Al knew how to wrangle everybody together.
Yep.
Al knew how to keep things together and to move in between Phil and Jace. And I tell you, I miss Phil. I do.
Yeah.
But Jace is incredible, man. I mean, he has picked right up where his dad left off.
But I'm going to tell you something. Again, I agree with you, John. But again, it's Al knowing how to set him up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's known how to set him up his whole life.
John, it's like a quarterback that throws the ball to a receiver in stride. If the receiver has to go back for the ball and catch the ball behind his back or something,
everything's off.
It hurts the receiver's flow. Yeah, you can see when a guy catches the ball and it's behind him, as opposed to, listen, growing up being a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I know what it's like to have two guys on the outside. And when Joe Burrow gets the ball to Jamar Chase in stride, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
When Joe Burrow gets the ball to T. Higgins in stride, it's over. Right? Because And that's what Al does so well, John. Jace does a great job, but it's because Al's feeding him
exactly where he needs to be at.
Exactly. It's like throwing an alley-oop to a guy in basketball. I mean, you throw it up there just right, and it's easy to slam it home. And that's the impact that Al has made on that podcast. And I've told him that privately several times. I'm like, dude, you're the perfect. But here's the thing about Al that people don't realize. Al could do his own show very easily, and it would be very successful.
Yep.
Al's got that natural ability. That's why Al, nothing against Willie, but Al that's why he's the family front man.
Yep.
That's why, and I hope it doesn't happen for years. If something happens to Phil, they're going to run to Al and Lisa to keep everybody together because they've done it for years like that. And so Al is the ultimate front man. That, do not estimate Al's impact, underestimate, I should say, do not underestimate his impact on the success of that podcast.
Oh yeah, Todd and I've had that conversation several times, and like you, to me, it's like a color commentators of an NFL game. You've got the play-by-play, and then you've got the the guy doing the analysis.
Al's the perfect, John, that's a great analogy. Al is absolutely he's the play-by-play guy.
Exactly.
Yes.
He's the play-by-play guy. Exactly.
He's the Mike Tirico, the Al Michaels.
Yep.
The Joe Buck. I was watching Monday night, I was watching the Vikings and Rams in my hotel room, and Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are just masterful together. I mean, Buck calls Buck sets it, 1st and 10, here's a pass downfield caught, and then Troy Aikman just, Troy Aikman's like, you see how the receiver drags it along the sideline, and it's just great. And that's what Al does for those guys. And I think that's why they'll continue. Look, they can do that podcast as long as they want to.
Yeah, it's up to them.
Exactly. So, it'll be but Al continues enjoying speaking. Him and Lisa, they've got another full schedule this year. In fact, we're hoping to get to be with them in Kentucky about the 3rd week of March. They're going to be about 3 hours away. So
how do we find what their schedule is? Because if they're anywhere
go to alandlisarobertson.com and go to events.
There you go.
Yeah, alandlisarobertson.com. Go to events.
Because if they're close enough to me, it's like Gordon's going to be an hour north of me. He's coming in to do at a church he used to attend.
Oh man,
when he lived here, he's going to come in and do a viewing of the blind on a Saturday, and then he's going to give his testimony or speak.
Well, here's the thing too. Okay, so our event with Al and Lisa was kind of an off the books event. So that's why we didn't, everything that they have that is, and I say on the books and off the books. So if you bring Al and Lisa in through their booking agency, that's how the events go onto their website.
Right.
They just did it for us because Al sent me a text and goes, we can do this on a Friday night and it's not going to interfere with anything. And so that's how we were able to do it. Look, our church, we got a church of about 100 people. Well, 80 to 100 people. There's no way we should be able to have Al and Lisa Robertson, but we did. And it was made possible by a lot of people that came together and helped us out, man. It was just...
What's a relationship, too, that you have with those guys? And
well,
they haven't forgot where they come from either, brother.
John, here's the thing. I don't blow Al and Lisa up a ton. I'll text him. I'll call him from time to time. If he can talk, he can talk. If he can't,
that's fine too.
They know I love them, and they know Tanya and I love them, and that's all we wanted to do the weekend they were here was just
love on them.
Told Al, I said, everybody asked me if I took Al to Tutors. I said, man, we only had so much time, and I wanted to take him to a little place called Oscar's here in Barbersville, and they've got really good biscuits and gravy. But at least we got him some some good West Virginia food. And listen, that won't be the last time they're here.
No.
It won't be the last time they're through here. I think they'll be back through this area. I mean, again, people love them, and they've just become dear friends. So I've blabbed on
No,
brother, you good.
That.
No, and just, to be transparent, they did sign a book and send it to me, and I really appreciate that. And I've got it whenever they do decide to come on. I'm holding up their book, and I've got 1,000 notes in here.
That was job one for me. I wanted to make sure that you got a copy of that book because, and I'll tell you something too. They had Duck Commander Bibles that were beautiful Bibles.
Yes,
and man, those things just.
I bet you they did.
I mean, they were quick. Yeah. Yeah, Al and Lisa sent like 13 boxes of product. And I think by the time we were done, we had 5 or 6 boxes of product left. People they ate it up. They loved it.
Yep.
And we were happy that people loved on them the way they did. It was, I look back on that, I think to myself, how in the world did we pull that off? And it was because of them. It wasn't because of, but my wife, my sweet wife, Tanya, caught the vision of that thing, and she helped me because I was traveling a lot. And my sweet wife, Tanya, was such a big help to me getting that event together.
There's always,
and people saw that.
There's always somebody willing to stand the gap.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether they're seen or not seen, somebody's willing to stand the gap.
Yeah. And Todd, her and Lisa just picked up like that. I mean, they hadn't seen each other in several years and just picked up. In fact, it was funny. Al hadn't seen my son Bryce since he was 16. Of course, now he's 24. And Bryce walks in. Al goes, "Bryce, you've become a man." I was like,
entirely,
well, yeah. So it was good, and we got to that was where the intentional encouragement book, that was the first night it was available to the public. So, Al and Lisa were gracious to share their time, and I got to speak before them. They were gracious enough to do that for us. And so, yeah, it was quite the night, man. It was really, really good.
Well, I hope they're able, and listen, I know between Phil,
their own schedule,
their family. I mean, I get it. It's tough, man. And
you want to know how great the Lord is in this situation. And I'll say this real quick. Everybody knows in 2020 that Phyllis, Phil's daughter, came into the picture. Yep. And Al, they've talked about that. In fact, I did an interview with Al, and I'll have to link it, but I was doing a radio interview and had Al on, and I recorded it from my car, and I was in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and he was somewhere. So we were in the car and recorded it. And it turned out good, but he talked about Phyllis. And the amazing thing is Miss Kay always said, "Well, I knew that your wild oats would come back to harvest." She said, "But I always wanted a daughter." And here's the thing. Phyllis has become Phil's caregiver to some degree. Phyllis and Tony, her husband, live right there close.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's a nurse. You don't think the Almighty doesn't have a plan?
Well, she just worked her last shift, so I guess she's going to be taking care of him.
John. And John, here's the thing. And Todd, I see you smiling there. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
I'm picking it up completely.
God always has a plan because he turns messes into messages.
That's right.
People could have said, "Well, man, Phil, you messed up." Well, no, the Lord saw this 50 years ago.
Yep.
And God said, I'm going to use this for good. What the enemy meant for evil to embarrass Phil Robertson. No, I'm going to turn this for good. And it's been tremendous. In fact, I've got a piece Al sent me 4 or 5 years ago. I've got a lithograph that Tony painted that Phil signed.
Yes.
That I've got out in my podcast studio. I'm going to put that up. I haven't put it up yet, but
he does some beautiful work. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm going to get it framed and put up, and it's beautiful. It really is. Tony Thomas is quite the talented artist. He really is.
That's right.
There's one I've got one I want to commission him to do, but it's something very special and dear to my heart, but it's going to it's not going to be a $500 or $600 painting. It's going to be a $2,000 or $3,000 commission in order for him to do
what's the value worth to you, John? It's probably priceless.
Priceless.
Priceless. So, and it's just a matter of, finding the opportunity to do it. But, I would love to have them on sometime if they'd like to come on,
I think they'd love to come on. I think they would. Yeah.
So, and another one is Jeff. Todd and I have talked about, ever since I saw Jeff and Jessica on the Duck Call Room and heard about their ministry, All God's Children, and what they're doing for these children overseas. Man, listen, it's like I told Lisa now in the emails, letters, I'm not worried about Duck Dynasty. That's not what I want to talk about. Everybody knows that. Let's talk about what's going on in your life currently and the discipleship, and how can we help Jeff and Jessica get the word out about their ministry?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's what 100%. We want to do here, man. It's not about, and Todd and I, when we had Burley on, we had no idea the connection that Burley had with Jan. And I mean, he got very emotional on the podcast when he started talking about Jan.
All those people know each other. Yeah, all those people know each other. Well, I have a good friend down in Austin, Texas, Josh Deshay. He, in his formative years, he was in West Monroe, knew all of them. And he reached out to me and he goes, "How in the world do you know Al?" He said, "How do you know Alan?" And I said, well, I'd tell him the story. And he said, "Man, it's crazy, John, what a small world
God has put together."
Right. That's exactly right, boys. And again, they're wonderful people. I love them dearly. I love them dearly.
Well, I'm gonna do an about. Well, let's do a segue here with that, because
that's right. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I wanted to get you back on is to talk about your new book, and what we're talking about here has a lot to do with encouragement. Your text to Al and Lisa. I see Lisa's messages to you and Tanya on Facebook, when you put something up and it touches Lisa. And like you said, they're people, they're not going to just post something up to be posted. I mean, they really mean what they say. So for you to have that relationship with Al and Lisa, and to be able, whenever they're, with his dad sick or whatever, how to encourage people. And just so people know, that's actually how I found Brian, was because I watched so much at the time. This has been 4 years ago, Brian, 3 years ago, something like that. Because you were one of the first people that it's been 2 years ago, almost 3 now.
Wow, it's been that long, John?
It has been, because we had just moved down here whenever I was listening to your podcast. And so it's been about 2 years. So you said it's been about 2 years since you recorded. You were still doing the Tom Roten show, and you had Al on. That's when I think that's when you were in the car with the microphone.
It was.
So that the algorithm popped that up, and I'm like, well, shoot, this is a homeboy.
Yep.
He's from West Virginia. And so then.
Well, you're really going to like this, because Marshall just hired a Boone County boy named Tony Gibson to coach football up here. So, I went to school at Marshall, go Herd. So
Tony.
I don't like the school 175 miles to the north that wears
I got some
blue
stories about Tony Gibson to tell you when Chad was in camp up there when he coached with Rodriguez. And he did a lot to help me whenever I coached youth kids.
Yeah.
He took all the time in the world to help me. So where was it?
Intentional encouragement.
There you go.
So what happened was, through me listening to that podcast for that show, because even though you recorded that on the Tom Roten show, you reposted that on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
Yep.
And so I started listening to it, and finally I said, you know what, man, so that everybody knows, there was a 4, 5, 6-part series that I did on influence and impact, which Larry Bowles, I recorded with Larry. He's the one that's
that
connected
was really good.
to Al and them and WFR. And I recorded with him out of Athens, Greece. It's crazy. And that's how we actually met. So when I started listening to your podcast, I'm like, man, this is some good stuff. And so for you to have the impact that you're having, even on Al and Lisa in this time of, where they're going through with their family, for me, man, that's incredible. And I get a lot of encouragement. But your book, I never really looked at encouragement the way that you talk about in your book. And kind of tell us what spurred this on, because the other one was written in honor of your father, your late father.
Yeah, people buy from people.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. So when you think you're going to write one book, You end up writing something else. And so, that's what people buy from people. Whereas I thought, I've got all this sales experience. I'm going to write a sales book. And I got halfway through it and realized my dad wasn't teaching me about sales. He was teaching me about connection. And so that's how people buy from people ended up. Intentional encouragement, Jon. So 2006, we left the church that we're back at now and went to a church in Charleston. And the pastor at that time said, and I was really involved in the church in Huntington. I was playing music. I was teaching Sunday school. Man, you name it, I was doing it. So we go to this larger church and the pastor goes, well, Brian, I know all the stuff you did, but we have a rule here that you need to sit for 6 months so that people can get to know you. You can get to know them. It's a transition period. And I said, okay. And man, the first 2 weeks I was there, I was miserable. The enemy started working on my mind one Sunday night in church, and he goes, if you were back home, if you were back at Bible, you'd be playing the organ right now. Instead, you're sitting here. Hope you like it, And Pastor Moss prayed for me, and that spirit left me, and I was okay. But I wanted something to do where I could make an impact while I was waiting. Felt the Lord call me to a ministry of encouragement. Okay? But Jon, here's the thing that I realized. You're going to give a lot more than you take in. Okay? And so, maturity-wise, I wasn't really mature enough to handle what God was giving me. I just thought, well, it's a gift. But here's what I found out. Over the years, as I kind of ran from that ministry, God kept pulling me back. God kept pulling me back in. Todd kind of sucking me back in, so to speak. You try to run from the Lord and he just pulls you back in.
That's right.
And so in the last 4 or 5 years, 2019, I got real active on LinkedIn. And I saw a lot of expertise, very little encouragement. I thought, I can do something about that. I can fix that. I can make an impact there. And so people had been telling me, man, you do the Roten show, you should do a podcast. And I thought, okay, do I want to do a sports podcast? Do I want to do this? And so early in 2020, the idea just came to me, intentional encourager. And that's where that came from. And I thought, okay, I want to do something with this. I want to do something with intentional encouragement. And so that's where the book was born. And so, guys, here is the thing, okay? Here's what people do not realize about encouragement. Most people, their whole lives, have done encouragement wrong. Yeah, Todd, that's the reaction. See, that's the reaction I get most of the time. They've done encouragement wrong. Here's why people have done encouragement wrong, Todd. What they do is they go, well, it's a pat on the back or it's a kind word.
Okay.
Or it's a token of appreciation.
Okay.
Most of the time, people will go, well, I'm going to say something nice to somebody and encourage them. I'm going to do something nice for somebody and encourage them. I'm going to give them a pat on the back or an attaboy and encourage them. Here's why they do it wrong. They're thinking about themselves first. I'm going to do something.
Right.
I'm going to say something nice. I'm going to do this nice thing.
Yep.
Okay?
I'm with you so far.
When you encourage somebody, it should never be about you.
Nope.
Okay? So that's why people have been doing it wrong. Here's the second thing. Here's what the definition of intentional encouragement is. Okay, you ready? There's words you're not going to hear me say when I define this. The definition of intentional encouragement is simply to stimulate, edify, and promote positive, personal, internal beliefs on purpose. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
To stimulate, edify, and promote positive internal beliefs on purpose. Here's another thing that people do wrong. Okay. Got this bottle of water right here. I've been varying back and forth between the peppermint mocha and the white chocolate mocha and the water. Todd, y'all got buckets down there in Alabama, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, up here, a bucket's a pretty good thing for a hillbilly to have. Old pickle bucket, old 5-gallon pickle bucket.
Right.
Okay. Listen, a pickle bucket is the ultimate multi-purpose tool. You put your foot up on it. You can sit on it.
You can stand on it.
You can haul rock in it. You can haul water in it. You can put your lunch in it. You can carry your groceries in it. It's a great tool. Here's the thing. You can never encourage anybody else if that bucket's empty. You can't pour into anybody from an empty bucket.
Nope. Absolutely cannot.
Okay? So if you're John, if me, you, and John was up here in West Virginia, and you said, "Hey, Brian, I'm pretty thirsty." John said, "You know what, Todd? I think you're right. I'm pretty thirsty." And you look at me, and I got this bottle, but it ain't got nothing in it. I'm like, "Boys, I can't help you."
Huh.
Now, if this bottle's full, I can go, "Well, if you got a styrofoam cup, I get you a little sip of water."
Right.
And all of us can have a drink. You cannot pour into anybody else from an empty bucket. So quit doing encouragement wrong. Quit patting people on the back when you're down in the dumps yourself.
Gotcha.
Quit trying to say something nice to somebody and your tongue's dragging the ground. You got to fill this up first before you can pour into anybody else.
Yes.
And so let me tell you something, boys. Stimulate. I'm going to break it down here just real quick. Stimulate. Anybody know people that needs a cup of coffee when they get up in the morning? Coffee's a stimulant.
Yes.
You know why? It gets you going.
Yep.
Okay. It's got caffeine in it, gets you going. Okay.
It's got a great smell.
So when you stimulate something, it gets it moving.
That's it.
Okay. We used to in the starter and alternator business. I used to sell starter. Believe it or not, I used to sell starters and alternators. I feel like Forrest Gump. I've done about everything. I used to sell starters and alternators, and years ago, Todd, years and years ago, the way an alternator fired, it was externally regulated or externally excited. So in other words, it had to have external excitement to turn on. In the 60s, either Ford or Chevy, either one, developed the internally regulated alternator. So it turned on internally. It's self-excited, if you will.
There you go.
Okay. That's what stimulation does. It starts it up. It gets it going. It moves it, gets it rolling. Okay. Edify means to build up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Edify is a Bible word. It means to build. Okay. We build muscle in our bodies. Our bodies are constantly building. We build antibodies, things like that. Okay. If you're not building up those beliefs that you believe about yourself, what's going to happen?
You're empty.
Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
That's exactly right. Right. You have to build intelligence within you. You know, most people don't get out of school 18 years old in high school and become an electrical engineer. No, you got to build that knowledge base, right? Even if you've worked on cars all your life, you're still building your knowledge base working on cars. I know a boy that manages a Firestone over here in Barbersville, one of the most talented mechanics I know. He's still building. He's not. We talk all the time. He's like, I'm still learning stuff.
Mm-hmm. And nowadays he has
forgotten more stuff about cars.
Yes.
Yeah, probably forgot more stuff about it. So edify, building up, and then promotion, amplify, get it out, promote it. Amplify means it gets all over you. Okay, growing up Pentecostal. Okay, still going to a Pentecostal church. We talk about the Holy Ghost getting all over us.
Right.
That's amplifying it. That's what That's what Jude said in Jude chapter 1, verse 23, building up your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Ghost, stirring that up, getting it amplified. That's how the church started in the book of Acts. They didn't keep it in the upper room. It
went out.
Spread like
That's
wildfire.
Right.
They went out and promoted what God had done for them in the upper room. And so those are the three components to encouragement. That's why I say people have been doing it wrong. You got to, it's got to start here, stimulating it within you, and you got to build it up, and then you got to promote it. And once it gets stimulated, edified, and promoted internally, then it can come out externally.
That's right.
Nothing can come out of you that's not in you.
Todd, how many times have you heard me use the analogy that if you pour out, God can't do it. He can't pour anything back in you. I've got a lawnmower sitting out in my garage right now that's got old gas in it. It won't start.
Yep.
So if your bottle of water, the analogy you used, if that water's sitting there and it's bad, Todd and I don't want to drink that water. I don't care how wet it is. If it tastes like garbage, I don't want it. And that's what a lot of people see in our lives is a lot of the stuff we're putting into our bodies is garbage. And so what's the Bible say? Garbage in,
garbage out.
Garbage out. Basically.
Well, Jesus said this. Jesus said, out of your belly will flow rivers of living water.
Yes.
And think about it. On the cross, where did they pierce him?
In the side.
In the side of the belly. And the Bible says that blood and water flowed out of him. So Jesus was not only using a metaphorical example, he was using a literal example but that's the thing, John, is most people don't let it flow out of them.
No, they try to hold on to it.
And you're never going to pour into anybody from an empty bucket. That's why you got to encourage yourself first.
You're right. I like it.
And here's the thing I'm going to tell you, boys. There's nobody on the planet that doesn't need intentional encouragement.
Everybody.
100%.
Exactly.
110% on that one.
A friend of mine asked me, he said, how's your book selling? I'm like, it's all right. Everybody needs this message. Everybody needs it. Because 9 times out of 10, you and I'm not saying it because I wrote the book. Okay. No. I'm not saying it because of that.
Not at all.
But here's what I'm saying is, I'd love to put a copy in Donald Trump's hands. Love to put a copy in J.D. Vance's hands. There's 535 people on Capitol Hill
that need a copy.
I'd love to put one of those in their hands.
Yes.
Some of them need the Word of God in their hands. Most of them need the Word of God in their hands first. But again, how can you lead people? Somebody might be running a company listening to this. Encourage your people. Tell them every day what you sincerely value about them.
Ooh.
Okay? Here's what I know about Jon Garrett. Jon tells me specifically what he enjoyed about that podcast. Jon will text me and go, Brian, when you said this or you talked about this.
Yep.
That's intentional encouragement right there. Because you could say, well, man, I appreciate you. Well, what do you appreciate about me?
Be intentional. Be authentic.
Todd, there is a vast difference. If nobody picks up what I'm putting down, pick this up. There's a vast difference between value and appreciation.
Yes. Very fast.
Listen, let me say this. I appreciate my brother Jon sending me this hat. I appreciate these headphones, this microphone. Let me tell you something. If my house catches on fire in the next 10 minutes, the thing I'm going to be picking up is probably my computer, my wallet, my cell phone. Pair of shoes, I'm going to get out of here. Bible. Those are things I value.
Right.
That's why we put valuables in locked places. You ain't leaving your pair of shoes out that you trape out to the backyard in. But I got dress shoes in shoe bags because I want to protect them. I want to make sure they stay good. The stuff you value is stuff you take care of.
It's locked up. From
stuff you appreciate.
Yes.
It's like, well,
yes.
I appreciate it. Listen, I appreciate having these readers, but I got them at the Dollar Tree. If they break, I'll go to Dollar Tree and get another pair.
Yes. Or you could be like my wife.
Lord.
You can go to Costco and get 5 for $10 or something other like that.
What's Costco?
What's Costco? Kind of
We
like
ain't got Costco up here,
kind of like
man.
Sam's Warehouse.
We got Sam's Club.
Okay.
We got one about 30 minutes away over in the little town I grew up
That's
in.
the equivalent of Costco.
Oh Lord, son.
Yeah.
What have I been?
You really didn't know what a Costco was?
I have been to a Costco.
Oh,
I got a piece. I was in Cincinnati one night, up near Cincinnati one night on the Kentucky side. I thought I'm gonna go in here and see what this fuss is about, this Costco pizza. I told the lady, I said, I'm not a member, but can I get a piece of pizza? And she's like, yeah, go get your piece of pizza.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm not going to say this just because he's on here, Brian, but Todd is very, very good at everything that you just described. And that's why when he doesn't do it on purpose, but he elevates when he gets around people, he's a magnet that people want to be part of what he has and wants to be part of him because he does it naturally. He does, and it's pure, it's authentic, it's not fake. And a lot of times, and I don't even think he realized what he was doing until I had mentioned something to him about WFR, because I'm like, dude, you got a relationship with dudes up there that I don't have, and I've known them, some of them longer than you have, but I said, you've got the relationship. I mean, so he has that. And some people like me, at times I have to work at it. And then there's others that, like Todd, that it just kind of comes along natural. Or you, Brian. I mean, I felt like I've known you my whole life ever since the first time we
I was worried about that for a minute because I was wondering if my headphones were picking it up right. Where you said Todd's like a maggot. I thought you said he's like a maggot. I was like, well,
it's just the type of love we've got between us.
Magnet.
Yes.
Magnet, not Maggot. Okay, I got you.
It's that hill. I need the captions underneath. I need to have Chad do the AI. Yeah,
you need it. Yeah,
live captioning.
Well, listen, redneck translation is available. You just gotta listen. I'll do talk to text, boys. I'll do talk to text, and it'll come out wrong. I've done this with Al, and I'm like, Al, talk to text don't recognize hillbilly.
Don't worry, it does not work well.
It doesn't recognize hillbilly at all, and so. But you know what, John, that's the thing is that we need more teaching in the church on encouragement. We need more understanding. If we can teach people how to encourage themselves
first,
they in turn will encourage others. Yes. And that's, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but by the end of this year, the follow-up book will be out, and it's going to be The Intentional Encourager. The title of this one is Intentional Encouragement, the one thing that changes everything.
Yep.
The Intentional Encourager, its title will be Become the One Thing That Changes Everything.
Oh, wow, that's good.
So, again, we'll go through concepts of how to encourage. We touch on a little bit in this book.
Yes.
We're going to go deeper in this second book, because, again, if I can get you to understand how it transforms, because here's the thing, okay? There are times in life when somebody tells you something and you have a V8 moment. You boys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I say V8 moment to some of these young kids are like, what? What is that?
You go from standing sideways to standing straight up and going, aha.
Well, John just hit on something, okay? So when I was a kid, I watched them commercials like I could have had, hit yourself on it, I could have had a V8. Okay. By the way, V8 juice makes outstanding salsa. If you like salsa, V8 juice is what you want. Make good salsa, okay? But people, when they hear something about themselves from somebody else and they're sincere about it, a lot of times that person goes, I never realized that. That is one of those moments that can transform somebody. That's why the book's called The One Thing That Changes Everything. I tell you something about yourself you didn't realize positively. And you go, that's powerful. I want to do more of that. And then now all of a sudden, you've stimulated it. You go about edifying it. You go about amplifying it, promoting it. All of a sudden, it starts affecting everything around you. So that's why you have those V8 moments. That's why you look at that and you go, okay, well, I want to do that more and more. I want that to be a part of what I'm about. And so that's what I want my legacy to be. Listen, I'll tell you this real quick. The reason I was telling a friend of mine the other day, John, the reason I'm writing books, doing podcasts is easy for me because I feel like I could talk pretty well and things like that. Books are a little bit of a challenge, but books are also a legacy. I see, you can call me a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I listen to Glenn Beck and he goes, get as many things as you can that you can keep because a lot of these digital pieces are going away and getting censored. And so that's a part of it. If I would die tomorrow, my family's got 2 books. They can hear my words in their head reading that book, doing stuff like this with you guys.
That right there.
It's all about, listen, my dad died at 59, went to bed and didn't wake up, was supposed to teach a Bible study the day he died. I'm just trying to leave a legacy, just trying to help a few folks along the way.
That right there speaks entirely to why John used to kind of rib me a little bit about writing so much. But that what you just said speaks entirely to why I write. And it's not for me. It's for the ones behind me that they can read. And I have 5 grandkids. And they all call me Pop. And at some point, they'll be able to open those books and say, well, on this date, Pop was sitting here and had heard, and this is his thoughts on what he heard.
Yeah. I'll tell you guys a quick story. Okay. My life is just full of these stories. 52 years old, and this stories of my life. Okay. My grandpa Sexton, he and my grandma had my dad. My grandma, I think, was 44 or 45 when she got pregnant with my dad. My dad was the youngest of 12 kids. Okay. So 1957 was the year my granddad died. That was a good 15 years before yours truly made his appearance in the world. Okay. My granddad, just right around the corner here, I could leave my driveway in 2 minutes. I'd be at that little Baptist church. Okay. My grandparents lived in a house that I pass every day. The house they lived in isn't there, but the lot's obviously still there. They'd walk to this little Baptist church, even though they were Pentecostal, even though I grew up Pentecostal. My grandma was Pentecostal. Because of my granddad's health, they walked, Miss Sexton and her brood of kids walked to this little church. My dad was 4 years old. Granddad got up one night. My grandpa got up one night at church. They said, Brother Sexton, would you lead us in prayer, stand up, pray over us? He stands up, pray, and falls in the floor dead of a heart attack. No longer stands up and just drops to the floor. So my sweet wife and I meet on a blind date 29 years ago. Meet on a blind date. So we went out with a couple of our friends, and then this was our first real date, just me and her. I grew up in Southern Ohio. She grows up here in Barbersville. Okay. Todd, I go to the house, and she's finishing getting ready, her mom and dad's house. Her mom sits me down, and she leans forward, and she goes, got to ask you a question. I'm thinking, oh, my word. Okay. She goes, did your grandfather die in church?
Wow.
I said, as a matter of fact, he did. Jon, she leaned forward even more and she said, I was 14 years old. I was there the night he died.
Wow.
Not only was I there, but Tanya's dad was there. Both sets of her grandparents were there. Okay. So fast forward. We lived next door to Tanya's grandparents before they passed away. This was years later. Tanya's granddad begins to tell me things about my granddad I have never even heard.
Legacy.
Tanya's granddad proceeds to tell me everybody had their head bowed. They heard him hit the floor. He was the first one to turn around and find him.
Intentional encouragement.
I've never, and I'm going to tell you something. I never knew Tanya, my wife. Never knew her family. Never knew this area out here where I live existed. But again, don't tell me the Almighty doesn't have a plan.
Yes.
Because all these years later, things that the Lord has allowed me to go through in my life, losing my dad, and my dad pretty suddenly the way I did. But my dad taught me when I was a kid, my dad made me believe I could do anything. He stirred up those beliefs in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm so purposeful now. I don't use the word passion. Hate that word. Terrible. I'm not passionate when I get up in the morning, Todd. I might have slept like garbage. I'm 52 years old and might sleep like garbage.
Yep.
Wake up hurting somewhere.
Yep.
I'm not passionate when I get out of bed in the morning. I'm like, can I sleep another 10 minutes? But I do wake up with purpose every day. Most days I wake up and I thank the Lord for another day. Ask God to wash my mind. Ask God to wash my heart, wash my spirit. Wash me in your blood, Lord. That's one of my morning prayers about every morning. Lord, if I've done something wrong I shouldn't have, please forgive me. I don't want to be wrong. But when you wake up encouraged, that purpose just kicks in, you know exactly. And here's the thing. I feel like I can face it because my mind's encouraged. I don't let that garbage get in my mind. And an encouraged mind is an empowered mind. It don't have no room
for the junk,
for negativity. Don't have no room for doubt. And so I'm just trying to help as many people as I can understand it. And it's easy to understand. I'm not the smartest. Listen, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Lord, listen to me talk. But I feel like I've got a message that's simple. I feel like I've got a message that'll change your life, change lives if you let.
It'll definitely make you look at differently at what your life is like and what your life is doing.
Yep, exactly. So, boys, I didn't mean to ramble.
No,
It's getting close to dinner time here, so
So Todd, hey, I'm in, Brian. So Phil, there's a saying Phil's got. What is it? If you got a better story, what?
Let me hear it.
Yep, it's I don't know how many times. If you got a better story, boy,
Let me hear it.
let me hear it. I ain't heard one yet, and we've talked about it. I mean, I've got a similar story with my wife and her great grandmother, or her great grandmother, and my great grandfather. But that's God. God's got His hands on us, man. I mean, whenever I think about how the guy that actually got me and Todd together through West Monroe. He's coming back on. He's kind of a mentor of ours, and we're really excited to get him. But we talk about him all the time on the podcast. But Brian, you're always welcome on here anytime, brother. I mean, we can dig into the Word anytime you want to come on. And matter of fact, if you're open to it, I can shoot you. Todd and I are doing fill-in now. Even if we don't have somebody to come on, we'll just get on here and we'll kind of do like it's unscripted, just like today.
Yeah, love to.
And
Absolutely.
we just come in and talk scripture and have a discussion about it.
Yeah,
it's not
I love
about
you,
anybody
brothers,
being.
Man. You guys are great brothers, and let me tell people how they can get the book.
Absolutely.
So I am kind of control. So I'm gonna pull back the curtain here a little bit. You can go to Amazon and you can search intentional encouragement. And you can get it that way. Okay.
No.
But again, Amazon don't have signed copies.
That's right.
Okay. And Amazon's pretty slow about getting, when you buy it from them, they're pretty slow at turning the money back this way. So I'm just being real. Okay. But I've got ways you can buy it from me. You can go to my Facebook page. If you type in Intentional Encouragement or Intentional Encourager Podcast, you can find me there. I sell my books for $20. I sign them and ship them, and that's included in the price. The easiest way to do that is if you want to do PayPal, do the friends and family option on PayPal. It's at Brian Sexton 13. I've got Cash App. That is Brian D Sexton 13. And I've got what else do I got? Venmo. And the reason I do it that way is, again, I want to touch every book.
Yep.
I want to sign every book, and when you buy it directly from the author,
it's different.
A lot of times the author sees that right away. Venmo is at bsexton13, SEXTON. So those are the ways that you can get it. I love signing them. Like I said, I put the price at $20 because I include shipping on that as well,
excellent,
too. So
excellent.
And I try to put a nice message in there for everybody that buys a book, because, again, that's what's so great about being a Christian. You personally know the author of the book.
That's right.
And I've got books out in my bookshelf that are powerful to me because I know the author of the book.
Absolute.
And so I would be incredibly honored if you want to buy some. I've got some books left and out of the first run there, but I'd be incredibly honored if you just want to reach out and go, hey, shoot me that information again. You can reach me. My email address is sextonbrian, BRIAN 13 @gmail.com. You can reach me that way, and I can send you the information. But boys, what a
blessing!
Listen,
what a blessing!
Oh man, you guys blessed me today. So,
well, hopefully we encouraged you as much as you did us, man.
100%.
And it's a great
100%.
book. Everybody, listen, I've read it, and it's exactly what you said here. I mean, but it goes much more into depth. I mean, there's things that I learned that I didn't realize. If you want to see where V8 actually, why it was developed, it's there. I mean, Brian went into different things about, he goes into a lot more depth about the starter and how everything works and how everything triggers this and from the twist of the key, that, and it all goes back into when you first get up in the morning and what you're building into yourself, and then what we build into ourselves allows us to build into others and properly encourage them. Because you can't do it on an empty. You can't. It's impossible. There's a lot of things you can't do on an empty stomach. There's a lot of things you can't do on an empty spirit either.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't want to go to football practice on an empty stomach. You're not going to make it very long. I mean, you're just going to run out.
That's exactly
you're going
to
run out of energy if you don't.
Yep.
If we don't fill ourselves up in the morning with the Word of God and let the Holy Spirit encourage us, like you're saying, and fill our 5-gallon pickle bucket, we're going to run out of steam
long before the day is over.
The first big, and Todd, the first big thing that challenge we hit, what little bit we have is gone, and then we don't have any more for the rest of the day. So we're like, I mean, it's tough, brother. I do appreciate it. Before we get off of here, though, I do want to give Brian Robertson, the guy who made your hat, he's a friend of Al's.
Yep.
And I don't know if Al talked to you about that gospel symbol and what's going on with it. Yep. He did a great job on those. You can go to armory.com, 611armory.com. He has our stuff on there. All the hats, the proceeds goes to One Kingdom at WFR.
Yep.
We get the only thing we kept out of that is just to replace the hat, and which is about like $12 is what we have in them, and everything else goes directly to One Kingdom. Brian does that. Also, go on to forerunnerproductions.locals.com, forerunnerproductions.com, and see what Chad's got going on. Actually, Brian, I don't know if we haven't talked, but Chad actually signed with an acting agent. He and his wife live in North Hollywood now, and he's in.
And I would highly recommend Chad's book. You're not gifted. You're not special. You're gifted. I think it's
book.
Yeah, hang on one second. I'll show you.
Yeah. So I definitely want to recommend Chad's book. I had to think about the title, make sure I got the title right. So
well, where John's going is we're also on all the places where you can get podcasts, whether it's Spotify or Podbean or Apple Tunes. We're on all of the sources.
He has another book that he's written, but he's got people that want it. And he won't let it go. He said it's not ready.
Well, that's a smart thing. Boys, again, thank you for
joining us
me on, man. What a blessing and what a blast to be on.
Before you duck out of here, just hang out for a couple of seconds, make sure that this loads up, and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, because this is different from StreamYard. It's usually really quick at it.
Yes.
Hey, everybody, thanks again. We'll see you in the next one if I can get us out of here. Brian, thank you so much again. Todd, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hey,
Thanks,
guys,
Todd.
we got some big things coming, and hopefully you'll see Al and Lisa Robertson on here. We're not making any promises, folks. There's some busy people. Hey, we love you guys, and we'll see you next time.